Hey everyone, welcome back to the Haunted Mario podcast. This is episode 5, and today I'm going to be talking about personal experiences with the paranormal. Now, what I did is I went on to the Haunted Mario Facebook page and I asked for people to submit their own real personal ghost stories that they have, and I do have a couple of submissions, and I'll be sharing one of my own as well. I want to thank everyone for all their support and all the likes on the page. Keep sharing the page for more content. I try to keep it updated as much as possible. I also want to thank everyone that tuned into and has listened to my guest appearance on My Darkest Hour with Stefan Brigatti back in June. It was an honor to be on that podcast radio show, and I hope to do it again sometime in the future. So again, thank you everyone who joined in and listened to that podcast show. Alright, so let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and start with a lesser known personal experience that I have in regards to the paranormal on a very small paranormal investigation that I conducted with some friends in the paranormal world. Alright, now the name of the location is called Half Off Books, and it's a bookstore that is located in Uptown Whittier here in California. Now, the place itself does not appear to be haunted, at least from the outside. It just looks like any normal bookstore when you're walking past it. It is located in an older part of Whittier, which has a lot of history behind it. So when we were invited to join in on this investigation, we were excited, and rightfully so. We love investigating places that have history behind them, especially in older parts of certain cities or towns. So we went there and set up in different locations throughout the bookstore. The owner was very, very courteous. We were able to basically investigate the entire bookstore and the basement. Now, we investigated the entire place, basically from top to bottom, and as far as real recorded evidence, unfortunately, we didn't come up with anything as far as video or audio or anything visual for that matter. Now, myself, my wife, and a fellow investigator named Angela did have a personal experience. All three of us saw the same sort of figure, not really an apparition, but this sort of mental projection of this one figure. And what we ended up doing is that we knew we saw something down in the basement, and we really didn't want to contaminate each other's sighting with, influencing each other by telling each other what we saw. So what we did is we each took a piece of paper and we wrote down what we saw on it, and then we presented it all together. And our descriptions of the I guess you might want to call it an apparition. It wasn't a true apparition, but I think it was, to me at least, it was just a mental projection of what I was seeing. Besides, the area was pretty dark, even though we had some minute light. But anyway, so we write down what we saw, and all three of us saw basically the same thing. Now, each of us seemed to see this figure, or figures actually, wearing different clothing or similar type of clothing. But the main description is that we all three saw a young boy, and next to him was his dog companion. Now, what we gathered was that this young boy perhaps lived in or around the Whittier area at some point in time. His dog seemed to have maybe passed along with him into the afterlife, or Perhaps it's a companion that he found in the afterlife. We're not entirely sure, but our friend Angela did help these spirits cross over to the other side. Now, I wasn't present for that, for the crossing over portion, but that is what I was told, and that's quite a compelling personal experience when three people see the same thing, don't tell each other about what they exactly saw, and then write it down on a sheet of paper, and then all of their information basically correlates along the same lines. Now, granted, the figures that we saw weren't wearing the same clothing. I believe, if I remember correctly, I said that he was wearing like khaki shorts and some kind of I don't know, older button-up shirt, and that he had a dog. I couldn't remember the breed, but I know that he had a dog with him, and the kid could not have been, you know, between 7 to 11 years old or so. My wife saw basically the same thing, and Angela also saw the same thing, albeit all three descriptions uh, were that the boy was young, between 7 and 11 or so, and that he had a dog with him. Now, what he was wearing, those things varied, but I think since it was, in my opinion, more of a mental projection, maybe something residual, perhaps intelligent. I'm not sure. We didn't have much of an interaction with it, so I would label it more as a residual. But if it was an intelligent haunt, then Angela was able to communicate with the spirit and help them cross over. That's something you don't truly run across every now and then in the paranormal world, where you're able to help a spirit cross over. It's not unheard of, but a very interesting experience nonetheless. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read for you the message that Angela sent me, uh, just explaining some of the things about that night and some additional things that she experienced that I was unaware of. Hey Mario, why don't you talk about the bookstore in Whittier when you and I saw the same little boy with the white dog, and I crossed him over with his dog? Do you still have the papers that we both wrote down the same description? At that time, downstairs, I had an out of body experience. I don't know if it was that child, Paul, we gathered that his name was Paul, or one of the other spirits, but someone took over my body and made it very hard to breathe. I saw myself standing behind myself and saw my husband and Katie. I saw what appeared to be a soul leaving through the top of my head. I thought at the time I was speaking out loud, but I wasn't. I told the spirit they weren't allowed to do this, and at that, I was brought back, and that's when I saw the little boy and his dog. He was really sad because he missed his mom, but didn't want to leave his dog. I told him he could take the dog, and he made me feel his happiness. He crossed over. Two men and one girl spirits were watching, but they chose to stay. That was crazy for me. I just spoke to the owner last week, and she would let me investigate again. So there you have it. It's a message from Angela directly, and what a compelling experience that she had in regards to uh, helping a spirit or two spirits cross over, that of a young boy and his dog companion. So yeah, that's a great experience, and thank you, Angela, for sharing that with us. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to our next submission. Now, this one is submitted by Sean in Orange County. This is an audio submission that he sent to me, so I'm going to go ahead and play that for you now. I'm going to remove the background music so that it's not interrupting what he's saying. So please keep in mind there is a little bit of profanity in it. I'm not opposed to profanity, but just giving you a heads up that there is a little bit of profanity in his story. But it is a pretty interesting story, and we're going to go ahead and play that for you now. Okay?
So I guess the first one that comes to mind is when I lived in Menifee. There's just nothing to do in Menifee. So whenever there's a rumor that there's a haunted place, everybody goes over to it. Well, there's this place called the Mill that a lot of people go to. I don't know whether or not it's haunted or not, but that whole night was weird. We went to the Mill, and legend has it that a girl jumped off the very top window and died or something to that effect. I mean, it's been years, so maybe I'm incorrect on that. But we all went. It was me and a couple of friends, and we went to take some pictures. I actually have a lot of haunted stories, so yeah, like things happen to me personally, so I don't like to knock on that door if I don't have to. But it was a boring night in Menifee, so we all went. We took some pictures. I stayed in the car. You can call me a scaredy cat, whatever. I don't care. But I don't like to do that kind of stuff because things like to follow me home, which later on in the story you'll see that in fact happened. But anyways, they all went in, took some pictures, did all that fun stuff. They didn't really see anything or anything like that. And my friend Andrew, he before he got into the car, he was like, "Fuck you," and like I was like, "What in the world, dude?" And he went ahead and did that. But he said that, and he got an immediate chill down his spine, and he went right in my car and was silent, like just absolutely silent. And I was like, "Dude, what's going on?" And he was just like, "Dude, just drive." Another part of the story is that while we went to the Mill, a couple of my other friends, they went over to this farm that was rumored to be haunted as well. So we're going to go pick them up, and my friend literally sees my car and starts running towards my car, and just running fearfully, like something's behind him, chasing him. And I see with my own eyes, he falls straight down. Now, he falls not like he got tripped. He fell like somebody pushed him. So I get out of the car. I run over to him, and I grab him. And we get in the car, and we just start hauling ass. Now, I have a little Kia Rio at this time, so hauling ass means I was going like 35 miles an hour. But I'm going as fast as I can out of this place. And as I was leaving, he was like, "Dude, my back really, really hurts. My back really hurts." I'm like, "Dude, you fell on your face, not on your back. Like, what's going on?" And we lift up his shirt, and he has 3 scratch marks, which, Mario, I know you know that's a demonic symbol. So I get freaked out immediately because I know what it is, and I don't tell him that. I just get freaked out. And as I'm driving home, I feel like somebody's choking me. Like someone's wrapping their hands around my neck, and they're slowly squeezing tighter and tighter. And it's getting hard for me to swallow, hard for me to breathe. And I don't know what to do about it. So my friend's like, "Dude, what's wrong? What's wrong?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I feel like somebody's choking me. And she's like, "It's funny you say that because I feel like I'm being threatened. Like, I have that feeling in the back of my mind that someone's here in our car as we're driving, and they're pissed at us." So what I did is I went home. I don't pray very often, but I did. And I also got my black cat, which a lot of people think that black cats are bad luck. I've never seen that to be true. I actually think that black cats are good luck, because every time I've ever had an experience like this, my black cat seems to ward them away. Now, it might be just my cat because she's moo-moos and she's awesome, or it could be just the fact that, I don't know, but I think that they're good luck, especially with this kind of stuff. Maybe it's because I've read that they're half in, half out, half any other way, and like, if they bond with you, then they'll protect you kind of thing. I don't know. But yeah, my cat immediately went on me and just kind of like started purring, and things started to kind of release the tension in the air. Now, it could have been that I prayed. It could have been a lot of different things, but that one really freaked me out, because I really felt like somebody menacing was around me, and they really wanted to just do harm to me. I don't like talking about it, and I'm talking about it for you, for this podcast. So anyways, all right, thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Sean, for submitting that ghost story that you have. It's a pretty interesting scenario that occurred there where a person who is not so familiar with the paranormal but seeks it out and taunts it gets sort of attacked in a way. This isn't something that doesn't happen. It does happen from time to time. It's actually more commonplace than people realize. When you outright go and taunt something like Sean's friend did, that entity may attach themselves to you or attack you in such a physical way. But luckily for him, that didn't lead to further hauntings, or at least not to my knowledge. But thank you again, Sean, for submitting that. That's a pretty scary ghost story that you have there. So again, thank you for sharing that for us. All right, now this third and last submission comes from Connor in the Seattle area of Washington. This is a pretty interesting little story that he has from his childhood, so I'll go ahead and read you the message that he sent to us on the Haunted Mario Facebook page. So this is Connor's encounter with a shadow figure. Alright, here we go. Connor writes, so it's not a scary one per se, but the best one I have is when I lived in New Hampshire. I always loved New England because of strange happenings and mysterious sightings. Salem wasn't far, and the entire Northeast seems to be blessed with an otherworldly sense of eeriness. I was about 7 to 8 years old at the time. I remember my brother and I were sleeping downstairs on the couch. Right outside the living room was the door to the basement. Growing up, I was always cautious about the basement. There was a small hole in the brick down there, and it was always dark in that corner of the basement. This particular night, a bat somehow made it in the house. My mom woke us up to get us out of the house, and as my brother walked out of the room, I got up and started to head outside. As I left the living room, I saw something dark move on the stairs. At first I thought it was the bat, and I tried to catch a glimpse. What I saw was not a bat. It was a shadowy lower half of what appeared to be a man walking up the stairs to the second floor. My mom always closed and locked all of the doors, and this night the basement was wide open. At first I was scared, but then deeply intrigued and curious. I told my mom, who thought I was just joking and didn't think it was very funny. But as I moved toward the figure to see if there was a face, it took one step up and vanished. The next morning, my brother and I went into the basement to find that the hole had grown to a large portion of nothing. Our brick-up wall was about an eighth of the way crumbled. To this day, I don't know what it was or who it may have been, or if it caused the hole. But until we moved, I was always waiting to see it again. I know children's minds can create things, but this was very much real, and I have loved and been interested in the paranormal ever since. Okay, so that was Connor's experience with a shadow figure. Pretty interesting that one of the more commonplace sightings of paranormal activity is generally shadow figures. And the weird thing about shadow figures is you're not entirely sure what they actually are. Some people believe that shadow figures are elementals. Others believe that they're just sort of a collective of bad energy in one area from, people investigating constantly over and over again. And there are other people, and some in the scientific community, that believe that shadow figures are interdimensional glimpses of others from another dimension, but they're projected in this world as sort of a silhouetted figure. I personally am not really sure exactly what shadow figures are. I have had a couple of experiences with shadow figures, one of which was a seemingly negative experience back in Virginia City earlier this year that I talked about in an earlier podcast. But yeah, thank you very much, Connor, for that submission. That was a really cool tale of your experience with a shadow figure. Okay, so that'll do it for these submissions. Those were the top 3 best ones that I received from everyone that submitted them. And of course, the one from Angela correlates with my experience, so I decided to include that as one submission. So she was the one that submitted that personal experience that she ended up having with myself and my wife. So that was a really cool one to share right off the bat. So it's very important to sort of document your own personal experiences with the paranormal. In your notebook, or if you want to do an audio file, just describing what you saw. Especially because you can't capture everything that happens to you on an investigation or at your house or wherever you may be, and you come across some sort of paranormal experience. A lot of times these things can't be documented because you don't have a recorder on you, you don't have a camera or a camcorder, and it just happens out of the blue. The paranormal world does not occur or create experiences um, at your whim. It happens randomly, and you're just lucky enough to be at the right place at the right time. But in any case, it's very important to share your paranormal experiences. Um, those that are out there that are believers, and those that are out there that are skeptics, everyone at some point may have a paranormal experience. It's up to you if you want to truly believe it or dismiss it. But I personally believe it is something important to keep track of, especially when you're a skeptic, when you're trying to debunk as much as possible. You can go back and really analyze the experience altogether and sort of see what may have caused said thing to occur. Now, does that mean that every single personal experience can be explained away? No, I mean, you're the person that experienced it. If someone doesn't believe you, that's their prerogative, but in any case, that's a personal experience that you have for yourself. It's a story that you can share to others that do believe and say, hey, look, I'm not crazy, this is what I saw. But in any case, thank you everyone who submitted, and this is a really cool experiment, and I look forward to doing this again on another podcast as a future feature from time to time. And that about basically wraps it up for the podcast today. I do have a couple of announcements. Next month, actually in about 2 weeks, we'll be heading up to the Grey Ghost Paracon. That's up in the San Francisco area, where we'll be investigating the USS Hornet. So I will be there. So anyone that is joining us on that adventure, I look forward to meeting you. And it's going to be a great experience being able to investigate a battleship, a naval battleship, and stay overnight on the actual battleship and sleep in the World War II bunks that soldiers from back then got to experience. So look forward to that investigation and anything that we might bring up out of there. So road tripping it up in the next couple of weeks up to there, and that should be a great experience. Another thing is Haunted Orange, which is a team that I belong to, is having a couple of lectures in the next 2 months. One is in August and one is in September. The lectures are basically the history of vampires and vampirism, and the other lecture is about the Salem witch trials and basically the history of witches. So that's a great way to kickstart your Halloween season for this year. So if you're interested in those, go to the hauntedoc.com website. You can go to the live lecture series. It's on the top banner menu of the webpage, and you can buy tickets. Tickets are only $10 for these events. Also, if you're interested in any ghost walk tours, right now I believe the September dates are still available at 50% off, so go ahead and go there. And if you're interested in a haunted tour of downtown Orange, you can go ahead and check that out. So again, thank you very much for listening in on the Haunted Mario podcast, And don't forget to go to the Haunted Mario website. That's hauntedmario.com to learn about more things paranormal. Take a look at our creature feature, the vault, which brings you the news stories in the paranormal world for each month. And go ahead and also give us a like on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Haunted Mario HQ. Or there's a link directly to the Facebook page right on the website where you can like and share the page with anyone else. And also go ahead and go subscribe to our YouTube channel where I post these podcasts as well as any paranormal evidence that we capture from our travels. So you can take a look at our videos there and see some of the paranormal things that we've caught in the past, and from any new and upcoming events. So thank you again for listening, and I hope I've given you all some more insight into all things paranormal. And just as always, happy hauntings.